Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Space Jam: A New Legacy, and this is directed by... who cares? So the original Space Jam, the one with Michael Jordan, is of course one of those nostalgic zeitgeist sort of staples of my generation, the millennial generation. It's just one of those crossover marketing ploys where, the focus is more the product placement than anything else, but as kids, we ate that shit up. When I was a child, I saw the original Space Jam, and I thought, this is the greatest movie that has ever been made, and nothing will top it. Because it's Bugs Bunny meets Michael Jordan. I mean, what more could a kid want? And from a marketing standpoint, for the kids, it's a great idea. But for whatever reason, that film has just sort of stood the test of time in terms of nostalgia, and people from my generation look back on it fondly, and they remember it almost as if it was actually good when it certainly wasn't. But at the same time, I do understand there is a certain level of comfort in watching this sort of stuff, or at least remembering that sort of stuff from your childhood. It's kind of like, maybe late at night you go on YouTube and you just watch a bunch of commercials from 1995 and you cry yourself to sleep just remembering, your childhood. And it's that warm, secure feeling of nostalgic materialism, I think, that makes us feel kind of secure. Getting to remember the texture of our worlds from the past without having any of the substance, really. And therefore you can just attach yourself to the materialism without having to think about it. And it is the easiest way to coast. And that's the reason I wanted to see this movie. I mean, you're probably thinking, why the hell would you review this movie? But really, it's more out of fascination because, my generation now, which was, little kids at the time of the original, now a lot of us have kids of our own. And so you get to milk a very kind of mediocre movie like that from the past that still has that romanticism to the millennials, and now that they can share it with their kids. So it's, full circle. I personally have no children of my own, so I don't really get, an eye into that world for children. So, I was interested to see how they pander to children in this new generation, and just, notice how times have changed, because things have changed a lot since 1996 into 2021. And I just want to say I had no high hopes for this, none whatsoever. I expected it to be really, really bad, especially after the trailer, but oh my God, I feel like I deserve a reward for getting through this. My eyes were hurting a lot just from the sensory overload of the experience, because Jesus, it is aggressive. It felt honestly like visual assault at a certain point, and I mean, at least the original movie had Bill Murray. With this movie, it's very bright, the colors are really popping and all of that. It looks very expensive. It is sleek, it is glossy. It's one of those things where I almost felt like I needed to rip a tag off the movie before watching it. And even though the entire franchise is meant to be, pandering to a demographic, naturally, still, this movie it was shocking. And perhaps I'm just a really bitter old woman who can't handle all the loud noise anymore, but I don't know, it just felt more nauseating than I thought it would be, and I think it's an example of how misguided the relationship between film and corporate tie-ins have become, to the point where there's not really much of an attempt to hold a story together. I mean, just barely is it being held together. And there's not room for any sort of pathos or anything like that. And not that it's, super necessary, but just, a basic, very simple, concise story, I think, is the key here for making movies like this come together in order to resonate for kids. But there's very little of that in this overstuffed mess. It's clogged with so much product placement, so many references, so much CGI vomit. So naturally the sentiment and the arc of the story just gets completely lost in this Where's Waldo of WB fictional properties. Now, the story with the original film, I think was, I think it was Michael Jordan, and he's a basketball player, famous basketball player, then he decides to retire. And he becomes a baseball player. And the whole movie is about his journey kind of rediscovering his love for the game of basketball. This experience of being sucked into this cartoon world with the Looney Tunes, and having to play basketball in order to save them, that is what rekindles his love for the sport. And, that's the whole angle. Okay, it's fine. But this one is going more for like a hook, like a Spielberg's Hook sort of angle, where LeBron is this kind of like no nonsense father, and he wants his son, who has a lot of talent, to be great at the game of basketball, but the son isn't really interested in that. He's more interested in gaming. He wants to be like a video game designer, which makes sense in this new generation, this, of all these tech savvy kids. But I had no idea that they were this tech savvy. I mean, as I said, I don't know much about the new generation of kids, but good Lord, it's changed a lot since I was a a child. But, you know, this whole movie is just about that. It's about, you know, technology. It's all dealing with like super servers and algorithms. Even the villain, his name is Algorithm. But that's okay. You know, I can hang with the story, you know, just on a basic level, just as a concept. You can do the whole classic thing where the hero's journey will teach LeBron what is important to him, which means respecting that his son is somebody different, that his path might be a little bit different than his. And yeah, it's all fine on paper, but that is simply an outline. I think you need to carry it through, you know, in order to have a satisfying climax. And you want that sentiment to pay off. And with the original, I think it's just, I'm not saying it's a good movie. Like, I'm acting like, you know, I'm comparing it to the original as if the original was good. It's not good. But, you know, it was a different time. Entertainment was different. Attention spans were not nearly as short as they are now. And so at least they took the time to build Michael rekindling that love of basketball. They took a lot more time with Michael to build that relationship with the Looney Tunes, you know, before the big climax, the big game against the Monstars. And obviously I'm not a child, so I'm not the best person to be talking about this, but I remember being a child and watching the original, and it really making me want to play basketball. Like, you know, it made me kind of see the passion for it a little bit. Whereas this one, it felt almost completely unrelated to basketball. But more than that, it's just everything about the movie is just like, it's a depressing reminder of how the AIs are, you know, going to completely take over us. But yes, I understand that all of this, all of the clutter and everything, it's all very much meant to be intentional. It's meant to be one giant, you know, corporation, a representation of these advertisements exploding from every which way like it's confetti. And, you know, if there's any just small redeeming quality, I guess the lines aren't that bad. I mean, in terms of just like with the Looney Tunes, they have a few kind of funny jabs here and there, but very few and far between for sure. It's just that there's no time for anything. There's no time to build anything. Yes, the original was purely like an advertisement and an exercise, but it took a little bit of time for us to get to know the characters, as I said. And I thought that the animation in the original film was quite good. It's a lot darker. It feels more cinematic. And the animation of the Looney Tunes in this one I thought was really, really bad. They didn't feel like the Looney Tunes that I know, whereas I felt like the original movie did kind of connect them in that way. And I thought to myself, you know, like, you know, this is such an expensive movie. Why not get good animation for the Looney Tunes? But then I realized, oh, you know, there's this whole computer animation thing that has to go on. But everything is just so rushed here. It doesn't matter that the Looney Tunes stand out as likable, really, or charming so much as it just include them. That's all that's important. Get them out there. And that's the same with everything. Just be sure it's on the screen in some way so we can get them dollars, you know. So it's a lot of empty shells of known properties that we love, and it's just eating away at the frame. So there's no center. There is no emotion to be had. I mean, I think it was like 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in. You guys talk about Gaspar Noé and, you know, having an epileptic seizure in like some of his credit sequences and stuff. And I'm like, no, man, Space Jam is so much worse. I literally had to pause it at a certain point and just like look at like a blank wall for about 60 seconds. Clearly I don't go to the club enough. And that cheekiness, I actually don't mind the more satirical angle of this franchise with Space Jam, because, you know, why pretend it's anything other than it is? But it's still entertainment, and it's meant to be entertainment. And if I was a parent, I wouldn't really want to show my kids something that's basically like a laundry list of known franchise entities that have no connection to anything. But the original Space Jam, even if we didn't see it because we were just little kids, you know, the original Space Jam represents that trajectory, the sad truth of entertainment slowly being bought out by bigger and bigger corporations. But of course, this one, so many years later, as you'd expect, has plunged just so deeply into the darkness that it's almost unrecognizable. And even LeBron James, I was kind of excited, or at least I had hopes that he might be able to carry this a little bit better than, say, Michael Jordan. Because Michael Jordan, you know, he's wonderful, he's charismatic, but just he's not great with delivering lines. He never really was. He's just wooden. But LeBron has proven himself to be quite funny. He has, you know, a sense of ease when it comes to being an entertainer. And, you know, he was in Trainwreck. He played kind of like the sidekick, the comic relief of the movie. And I thought he handled it very well. But unfortunately, he's not much better than Michael Jordan in this. He's a little better, but not by much. But I think part of it is because they relied on the gimmick of, we're going to take the LeBron persona, but make it kind of the butt of the joke. We're going to make him kind of like this really sentimental, soft kind of person. And so he could rely on that, but he doesn't really have anything like that here. It's more just kind of straightforward, and he has to carry an entire film as a main character, and I just don't think he's really up to the task. You can almost feel people like on the side like feeding him lines every single time, and it's just kind of cringy. It's not terrible, but it's just disappointing. I hope for better. But if anything, I think this movie just represents even more how far Hollywood has drifted from maybe its original intent and why it doesn't connect with people nearly as much, the shallowness of everything. There are many things naturally that contribute to that hollowness that you see represented here. But I think a big part of it is that the movie is more, it's not really trying to go for a story, it's more trying to be an experience. It's trying to be very immersive, very much like interactive, almost like a real video game. And our major entertainment has been inching its way towards that. Some films have done a really interesting job at depicting it. But I think the big movies like this, they're kind of stuck and they don't know how to proceed, because they want so badly to be this sort of amusement park type of experience, but yet we're still kind of confined to our seats as voyeurs, and the screen is, it's just disconnected. You can't participate in it, because it's not VR. It's not, just a video game, but also there's barely any resemblance of a movie. So you can't connect to that either. So there's nothing to connect to. So with big blockbuster movies, we just remain in this very strange, kind of confused state where we can't connect to people who love movies, but we can't really connect to the people that want it to kind of revolutionize into something more. But it is what it is. I'm not surprised by it, and yet it still made me feel quite nauseous. But if I had kids, I certainly wouldn't show them this. I'd show them something that, didn't insult their intelligence, because kids have brains too. And I would worry about their pleasure centers being depleted after this kind of experience. Show them a Miyazaki film. That has tons of detail and tons of characters, yet it's made with heart and everything that this film is maybe the antithesis of. And that is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. It is deepfocuslens.com. I am an artist and I do commission portraits, and I sell prints of my work. If that's something you're interested in, you can always go to deepfocuslens.com/shop. If you have any questions about a commission or a piece of art, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much, and I welcome all the new members I have been getting. If you want to become a patron, the link for that is below, as well as my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.